everyone. My name is Hannah Bothner. I am the short film program director for Tallgrass Film Festival. And today we are here with the director of My Family Trees, Roshi Givechi. Hello, Roshi. Thank you so much for being here with us.
I am really excited to be here. Thank you.
I want to first start. This was your very first film. Is that correct?
That is very correct. My
What
first
was
short
the
doc.
process of creating your first film like? Was it nerve-wracking? Was it exciting?
Great question. I wasn't sure I would get across the finish line because I started it so many years ago, like I'm sure a lot of filmmakers can relate to. And during the pandemic was inspired to turn something that we couldn't control and, finally take this across the finish, and started something that I call the film sprint. And I'd be happy to talk about what that is, but yeah.
Absolutely, please do. I'd love to.
Oh, sure. So my background's in design, and I work with other companies to help figure out how to make things better, whether it's products, services, or experiences. And we use ethnographic research. So for decades, I've been thinking, one day when I grow up, I want to make short doc films. And, years pass and I wasn't getting to that point. But when I finally found the story and wanted to create it, during the pandemic, I decided to try to apply a design process to the film world. And I don't know if you've heard of a design sprint, but it's basically setting a very compressed deadline to go from idea to something tangible in an extreme time frame. And so I called it a film sprint and put a call out to friends and filmmakers that I knew to see if anyone would be willing to get hired for a 1-week film sprint to take my story, which I'd done a lot of different things with it, but at that point I had scaled back and then done an 80% audio narrative to just rework the arc of the story. And so we started with an 80% narrative, and by the end of that week had a substantial, a solid story that I felt like I just wanted to see if the spaghetti would stick on the wall.
Wow, that's absolutely fascinating. I love this, taking things from the design world into the filmmaking world. It's incredible. And I noticed that one of your producers for it was HP Mendoza, who's a Tallgrass alum many times over. How did you get connected with him?
So years ago, actually, in the design consultancy company that I worked at, he would sometimes get hired to help us bring stories to life in film. And I had the pleasure of collaborating with him then. And he's always kind of been my go-to as far as thinking like, if I want to go and film here, like, what technology should I consider? And so I started the film, and partway through this one, his schedule freed up a little bit, and I was able to lean on his advice and more as well. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, he's incredible.
So for your very first film, what made you want to focus on this story?
The last thing I wanted to do was focus on a story that was very close, which I'm sure is I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. I had assumed that to do a short doc, I probably should find an initiative. There's so many issues in the world that could use more attention, but I couldn't decide. And I realized that one of the things that I'm gravitated towards are these stories of comeback kids or people who turn something negative into something positive. And this story, I'd been sharing this story over many years with a couple dear friends who became the executive producers. And they said, you keep talking about finding the story. Why don't you tell a story that only you can tell? And so for me, it's about spotlighting the beauty and resilience in people. And I'm comfortable with focusing on character stories instead of assuming that everything has to be about big initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were definitely I have to imagine some tough moments when filming. I know that there's that moment where you get to back to where the trees were planted, and it gets kind of pretty emotional. What was that like on set? What was that expected at all? Did you how did you handle that on set? I guess is my question.
Yeah, sure. It was not expected because
Uh-huh.
I didn't even expect us to be there. I thought we were going to go revisit the land from a distance because my dad just wanted to kind of see it. He'd already let go of it and
Mhm.
had got that transition. And so we were supposed to just go like drive by it. And before I knew it, he was out of the car and like walking in. So it was a bit of a scramble we didn't go very far. It was just a few steps in. But we didn't expect to be there. And I don't think he expected to feel exactly what he felt at that moment. And the most that I was feeling for him. And I was remembering like, oh, I should probably capture this. So I felt a
Mm.
little bit guilty, not just being there for him. And I did the best that I could as we were
Yeah.
running off the field.
Yeah, absolutely. The hard part about when you're telling your own stories is that, yeah, you are the best person to tell them, but then you're so close to it too. And yeah, absolutely. Has your father seen the film? How did he react to it?
He has seen it, and of course during all this, this pandemic timeframe, when I finished it last year, I wasn't able to fly immediately to
Mhm.
show it to him, and so the best that we could do at the time was have my brother go to his house and they watch it on a very small screen.
Oh,
So
uh-huh.
it wasn't ideal in that way, but I was able to watch him watch it thanks
Mhm.
to my brother's help. And apparently I couldn't see it because of the size of the screen, but apparently he had a little tear.
Oh, wow.
So, but I was really nervous because he was more vulnerable than either of us expected.
Mhm.
Because I think when we started, he thought it was a story about the land and his love
Yeah.
of the land. And as stories go, different things surfaced. I had an inclination for what the other parallel might be, but there were things that surfaced along the way that neither of us had expected. So I'm pleased that he wasn't regretful.
Yeah. So, it's a very interesting situation that with this documentary that it is your story, but I have to imagine that there was still you still had to uncover and discover some things. Did you do any research or how did you prepare to tell all of the stories that happen in the dark?
Mhm. The research was more talking to other members that may have had perspective on what he was going through. Yeah, I think it was more around that than anything else. And there's things that I learned about the family that I was not aware of.
Yeah.
But it really, this didn't happen, even though I did a 1 week film sprint. The process started well before 2016. I was running around, basically shot it on my iPhone 6S with an adapter. And I think because it happened over many years, different things could emerge
Mhm.
and settle and help me think about what things were important to highlight or not.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, I and this is a really hard question because it's about favorites. You've finished with your first film. What is your favorite part of that process now, like looking back at it?
Of the well,
Yeah.
there are two, if I could share two.
Uh-huh.
One was with
Yeah.
my dad. We were on one of the trips where I was flying in from California and he was I was going from New York, he was going in from California, and we were meeting in Wichita. We were in a hotel and I was trying to record him describing things again.
Uh-huh.
And at one, and I did capture a headshot, even though I wasn't planning to use it. And he stopped me and was telling me where to put the camera and like what I should do. And I was like, oh, here we go.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah, it was cute. I mean, we of course did what father and daughter do, which is like momentarily bicker, but
Uh-huh.
it was really cute because he was beginning to take ownership of how the story was
I
going
love
to
that.
shape. But the other thing that really stands out for me was I just felt really lucky with the crew that
Mm.
aligned in a very short time frame for a very short time frame uh, in Arizona, in LA, in New York, and Brooklyn. And the fact that I just felt like everyone had my back, and they didn't know, most of them didn't know me personally. They just knew one other person that I knew really
Mm.
well. And yeah, it was just amazing to get their trust and creativity and see how the story shapes when other people get involved too.
Absolutely. That's incredible. What are you most proud of about the film?
Besides getting it done.
Yes, yeah. I mean, like that, I feel like that's the given, you know?
That's a given. What am I most proud of? That's a good question. One of the things that there's two things with the crew, and I should ask them if they feel this way, but again, it was like a group of strangers getting together remotely to have this like stressful time to bring a story to life. I was trying really hard to be a good, I don't know if it's director or man, I don't know what to call it, but I really wanted them to have a good experience, even though we never really met. It was, deadlines and such. So I think I did a few things along the way that made it enjoyable. So I'm proud of that.
Mm-hmm.
And with I'm just, even though I said I'm proud that it's finished, I'm proud that I was able to spotlight the resilience in someone that other people have said they can relate to, but that my dad in particular is alive to see it, so,
yeah, absolutely.
So maybe that's relief. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to talk to you today. My last question for you, what are you working on next? What can we expect from you next? Did the filmmaking bug capture you and you're working on more? And do you have anything to point people towards or plug?
Sure. Well, actually, I had started a different documentary before I started this one. When I was living in Asia, a story presented itself to me, and it's based in Taiwan. And so I'm keen to now pick that back up with my friend Ning, who lives in Shanghai, and that'll be an animated doc.
Oh, cool.
So the animation part will be a nice, fun, creative experience to try on.
Absolutely.
So I'm really looking forward to, and that still, it falls in line of this, spotlighting the beauty and resilience in people. And then the thing that I would love to point people to is the story, even though my story was about human, resilience in a person. I think there is another thread around, ecology. And so if anyone is inclined to think about planting trees in celebration of someone or in memory of someone instead of spending money in other ways, there's a website called thetreesremember.com, which is a great place where you could just go pay to plant a tree, and it helps the world. Or there's treesisters.org, which is based in the UK, but it's about doing good for the world as we continue to enjoy the world in different ways.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And those sound like wonderful organizations to support. Thank you so much for talking with us and for being here with us today. And thank you all out there for tuning in and for supporting Tallgrass.
Thank you so much.